How many riders does it take to start a carbureted supermoto? The 2024 Suzuki SV650. I have not ridden one of these in a very, very long time. I actually had a 2013 that I had as a track bike, and it was fantastic. I loved the power delivery. I loved the lightweightness feel to it. I gotta say that when I first jumped on this bike, it felt kind of heavy. It's not a heavy bike, it just felt kind of heavy. I don't know if that has to do with the bar positioning or just the fact that there's a steel frame and a V-twin engine underneath me. So let's see how it feels on the road. There are a lot of people that say this is a great first bike, and first impression, I gotta say probably, yeah. It's a very easy bike to sit on. Like, I'm 6 feet tall, I've got a 32-inch inseam. I'm so flat foot that my knees are bent. Like, I can stand up probably a good 6 inches. The seat is really low, the tank is fairly narrow, and the bars are even pretty narrow. It is a very basic bike. It is fuel injected. It does have ABS, but it does not have any real creature comforts. Like, it doesn't have cruise control, it doesn't have fly-by-wire throttle. It has a cable pull clutch. Even the forks are a standard fork that are non-adjustable. You can't set the preload, can't adjust the compression or the rebound. The rear shock, you can adjust the preload, but that's about it. This bike has not been updated with the TFT dash that's on a lot of the other Suzuki bikes for 2024, but there's nothing wrong with this dash. It's actually very visible. I'm not a huge fan of the tachometer, but it's got these different points. It's got 0, 5, and 10,000 RPM marked for easy viewing. It does have a gear indicator, which I do love seeing, especially on a bike that's meant for beginners. I feel like when you're just learning to ride, having the ability to look down and know what gear you're in is very useful. It shifts really well. It's very, very smooth. The foot pegs are really close to my knees, which as a taller person is a little uncomfortable. But again, entry-level bike, probably a good thing for people to feel more secure. You might be thinking, it's a 650, it's not fast enough for me. Because it's a V-twin, it's got a good bit of power. It can wheelie. I've done it. Obviously not today on a demo bike, but I have done wheelies on an SV. Now the SV1000, which they no longer make, that was a great bike too. That was a lot of fun. I think this is a good intuitive bike. Everything is where it needs to be, and there's nothing, like, you don't look down at the controls and go, well, what does that do? It's all very basic, like I said. I'm sure they've changed a lot as far as electronics and controls and mapping systems since mine, but I was able to do about 130 miles an hour, and that was on a closed race course. But just for reference, it's not a slow bike. That V-Strom 1050 sure does look good in orange. I did a video of that bike a little while back. I'll link that above. It's a pretty good overall bike. It was comfortable, it was smooth, it was easy to ride, and it's supposed to be like an ADV-esque style bike, but it feels more like an on-road bike than off-road. If you try hard enough, any bike can be an off-road bike. It doesn't even sound like a V-twin, it sounds like a parallel twin. I'm sure they've done a lot with the exhaust to kind of baffle that down. I love the Suzuki transmission. I think Kawasaki's still one of my favorites, but Suzuki's doing a really good job with their transmissions. A decent bit of buffeting. I hope you can hear me, because it does sound very loud inside my helmet. It's not unbearable. I'm getting a lot of wind on my chest, but it's not like side-to-side wind. It's straight on, so it's pretty stable. The mirrors are alright. Nothing spectacular, but there's nothing wrong with them. Downshifts can be a bit rough if you don't match your revs. That was just me more so than the bike. One thing I really like about this style bike is the fact that everything is easy to work on. It's all nice and exposed and right there. You don't have to take body panels off. My camera battery keeps dying, so I'll get some footage after off the bike. Man, this GoPro's killing me. I like the way it handles. It handles all right. It turns in a little slow, but it's a beginner bike. It's not a race bike. I think that From my previous version of this version, the suspension is a little different, and obviously I had mine modified for racetrack use, so it handled a bit better. But it's a good beginner bike. It's a good entry-level bike. It's priced all right. My GoPro is failing again and again and again, but I got to get down some final thoughts on the SV650. It is a good starter bike. It handles pretty well. It accelerates smoothly. The power curve is very linear. It's not going to really throw you back off the bars. You don't have to hang on. There's not any intimidating tech. It's a good bike to go start with. Now, you can find an older SV650 for fairly inexpensive. They don't hold their value all that well, but it is still a good bike, and it's still a good buy if you can get a good deal on one. So, curious to know your thoughts. If you've ever ridden one, what you think of it. If you'd compare it to the Z650, I'm gonna go take a look at that and see what I think of that one comparatively based on style. So I don't know that I would put this in the same class as the SV650. I feel like this bike is a bit bigger of a bike. It is more expensive, it is heavier, and it's not a V-twin. Well, technically the SV650 is an L-twin. This is a parallel twin. Let's see what the seat height actually is on this. The seat height is 31.1 inches. However, on the SV, it is 30.5 inches. So it's about a half-inch difference between the two. I like the styling of the Z650 a lot more than the SV, but that's my personal take. They now have a Z500, which is more similar in stature to the SV. It's less power, but it does look pretty sharp. So let me know your thoughts between the SV650, the Z650, and the Z500. What would you do? Hope this helped. Good luck with your bike search, and I'll see you in the next video.